Okay, so I actually plan to make a video talking a little bit about how you cannot win in capitalism and how even the rich are the ones suffering. And it coincided, my intention coincided with this occurrence of the CEO of United Health, I believe, an insurance company, being shot dead. It just happened this morning. I believe it was late at night for me, obviously, because I'm on a different side of the planet. But what an interesting coincidence. I'm not going to make any kind of commentary on this. You can go ahead and look on TikTok. There are a lot of very interesting comments about this occurrence. There are a lot of great jokes about it. I personally did have my little moment cackling over a lot of the great jokes that people have come up with. And I don't really have much sympathy for people like this, just because I understand, of course, that such people will exist inevitably under capitalism, but I just don't have much sympathy for people like this, and I can spare my tears for someone else. But going back to what I was intending to talk about today is how even if you're rich, even if you achieve great wealth and opulence, you're still going to suffer immensely under capitalism. Capitalism is such that it prioritizes continuous growth and expansion. It doesn't really care. Obviously, it cannot care because it's not a person, but we as people, when we succumb to the conditions of production, we start acting according to the rules. We may not even want to, but this is not up for us to choose. So when people who acquire in any way or form some kind of capital, in order to participate in the system of capitalism, they have to follow the rules of the profit. They have to continuously seek out ways of reducing their costs and making sure that the surplus value is always excessive. So they will keep on doing that, because otherwise they're going to be pushed away from the market, or they will be acquired by another bigger business, thus the monopolies that we now currently have. And no matter how ethical or moral we may be, we're not going to be able to escape this. These are the rules that everybody has to comply with, whether we like them or not, and whether we realize them or not. And this lack of awareness is something that really, really hurts a lot of rich people. They are very much out of touch all the time. I've actually had to work with a lot of rich people in the past, and I can tell you that a lot of them are quite clueless. They're very naive in some regards. In other regards, they may be very cynical. They may be very lacking in trust because they are so used to people wanting their money and nothing else. And that makes them very lonely, usually. People who are very, very extremely rich usually are very, very lonely. They have a hard time making friendships or forming meaningful relationships. Many of their hobbies are kind of restricted. They kind of have to do certain things to keep up with the Joneses, whether they like it or not. There are a lot of unwritten rules for them to follow, and they may not even realize sometimes that they are following a rule. Instead, it appears to them that they are making a choice, that this is something that they want to do. It's not influenced at all. Kind of similar to us, the poors. We also often feel like we are making our own decisions based on our own free will, but when we start examining the circumstances, we quickly realize that that's not the case, and we are actually always under an influence of the big subject, the ideological subject, and we're bound to follow all of these made-up scenarios that are built into the ideology that props up the economic system, and so are the rich. So there isn't much more choice for people who are rich or wealthy. They don't get to do all the fun things we often imagine they get to do, and not only it is extremely isolating, not only is it very similar in terms of alienation, it is also coming with a bunch of other issues. Just as I said, lack of trust, because they don't know who to trust, because a lot of people are after their money. It also comes with a lot of derangedness that comes basically from being too spoiled and having access to everything. And when you start thinking about all the little things that will inevitably come to your attention as you're surrounded by people who are very well off and who are very respected and who you may admire or who you may be afraid of, you will realize how much pressure. Sorry folks, my memory card keeps getting full, so this video is going to be all over the place. But what I was saying is how becoming rich may also come with a lot of side effects, and these side effects are pretty unique to the rich, and they're not something you want. And this is where I believe a lot of the kind of like sexual perversions may come into play, not necessarily because these people are spoiled and they have tried everything and they have grown tired of all the regular things. It's more because they have become so used to dehumanizing others, and they have become so used to these power dynamics where either they are dominating or being dominated by someone else, that this inevitably is going to affect all of their preferences. And this is going to bring a lot of harm to their psycho-emotional health. I'm not saying all of this to get any kind of an empathetic or sympathetic reaction for the rich. It's just that even if we win at the game of capitalism, we are going to suffer from things that are actually preventable. So the vast majority of the people, they don't want wealth. They think they want wealth and abundance, but what they do want is they want to have enough. And I've talked about this in a few of my videos a long time ago, where I talked about that nobody actually wants to be rich. What we want is to have enough to be able to pursue all kinds of interests we may have, to be able to realize our full potential. We need to have a certain amount of well-being established by the community where we equally participate, or where we participate to the best of our ability. And this is what gives us the most fulfillment. Not being a freeloader, not receiving things and not doing any work. For the vast majority of us, we actually don't feel good when we're not contributing. There's quite some research about this, but I would say even if you don't care about the research, even if you don't believe the research, you can examine yourself and your own motivations and intentions, and you will see that a lot of the antisocial behaviors are there because of the pre-existing trauma, and this pre-existing trauma exists because of capitalism. Of course, trauma will continue to exist in other type of economic circumstances, but much of the trauma that we have nowadays is going to be eliminated once we eliminate the conditions where it thrives. And if you've been following along my little journey here on the internet, this is all going to sound very familiar to you because I speak about this all the time. But here is a little newer take for you. I believe that desire ultimately is something that inherently is tied to the other. So if you have a desire for whatever it may be, then that means you're lacking in connection. And we have been raised in the capitalist world to continuously seek the satisfaction of our desires in material objects, in a material world. But ultimately, a lot of our desire for connection comes from the lack of connection with fellow men, with fellow humans. If we have established great intercommunal, interpersonal connections with each other, I would argue a lot of our material cravings are going to pass on their own. We're going to be able to eliminate a lot of this desire by simply connecting to the actual other, which is another human, not another object, not some kind of a material entity, not some kind of an ideal of power. It is going to be us relating to fellow men, fellow humans, and in this we're going to find the greatest fulfillment ever possible for human beings and for our type of consciousness. And I would say this is not that hard to achieve, actually, if we create appropriate conditions. And communism and socialism ultimately strive to build such conditions where humans are going to naturally thrive, where all of the technological advances and scientific advances are going to be used for the purpose of the biggest, the fullest realization of human potential. And I'm going to keep on repeating that until every single person on earth is able to hear that message. It doesn't have to come from me. It can come from anyone else. But do let me know what you think. I hope you have a great day today. Consider supporting me on Patreon. Do take care of yourself and your community first, and I'll talk to you sometime later.